Hi everyone. So let's continue our discussion on the next topic in the functions of an ecosystem. I hope you're clear with the sequence that we have been doing. I have already shown you that in the previous class that how we are going to proceed in this entire topic, because we are done with the basics, you can say, wherein we have discussed about how the different levels exist in the whole organization system in the environment, and then one by one into the details of all of that. So this is what we have done in the previous class, wherein we tried to study about the functions of an ecosystem in three major headings. One was your energy flow, another your nutrient cycling, or you call it as the biogeochemical cycling, or your ecological succession. Now going ahead with the energy flow, I again told you that we would be doing it in different sub concepts like food chain, food web and ecological pyramid. So food chain is what we have covered, and now we are starting with the food web. I hope you are clear with the sequence for that matter. Please do check the earlier videos in the series, and the other subjects are also being uploaded. And please do like, comment, share and subscribe if you feel the videos are of help to you. Let's start with the discussion on food web. Now food chain से ही related है actually food web. So food chain as a concept is what you have understood, that one organism will eat the another organism, and this is how the the sequence will continue in the system. But when we talk about food web, now let us understand, see, in the whole ecosystem you cannot have just one pathway of the food. That okay, हमने बात करी, let's say if we just consider this diagram for that matter, just for this matter, कि grass is eaten by rabbit, eaten by hawk. So this is just one pathway, just one straight away single pathway. But in the ecosystem, this is not the only possibility that can exist, right? There will be numerous possibilities also for different kind of food chains to exist. So food chain as a separate concept will trace only one pathway of the food. Let's say this for example. But when we talk about the multiple or the complex food chains existing in the ecosystem, one interlinked with each other in some or the other manner, then we call that as food web. Web एक जाला जैसे होता है ना. So here what is happening, it is illustrating or it is giving you an idea about all the possible transfers of energy. जितने भी possible transfers हैं energy के भी, nutrients के भी, which can happen here among the organisms in an ecosystem. Okay, so all the possible transfers is what is being talked about, because an ecosystem may consist of several interrelated food chain, and this is what we need to remember, that this will not happen that the ecosystem will have just one kind of food chain. ये तो होगा ही नहीं. So it will have several interrelated food chain, and that entire structure will be called as a food web, which will have several food chains within it. So for example, if we see it in a grassland ecosystem, so we can have the possibility of different permutations and combinations. For example, let's say the one that we just saw, one food chain, grass being eaten by rabbit, being eaten by hawk. Take it done. The arrows will itself indicate that to you, so I think it should be clear. Another would be, let's say there is grasshopper. So grasshopper is being eaten by lizard, lizard is eaten by hawk, or grasshopper may be directly eaten by hawk, or mouse may be directly eaten by hawk, or mouse is being eaten by snake, snake is being eaten by hawk. Okay, all of these possibilities can be there. So when we see all of these possibilities, we understand that it is an interrelated, because all these organisms that you're seeing here will be found in the grassland ecosystem. So it will be interrelated, and all possible transfers we can find from here. Now we also need to understand that if any of the intermediate food chain is removed, यहीं पे बीच में कोई भी फूड चेन अगर रिमूव हो जाता है, then the succeeding links of the chain will be just affected very largely. Why? Because the term that we have used is interrelated. So if they are interrelated and anything in between, if there will be missing part, then it will be a problem for the other food chains also. The other links will also be disrupted and will be affected on a very larger basis, on a very negative manner. Then what you have to understand, that what is the significance of having a food web, because it provides more than one alternative for the food to most of the organisms. ठीक है, ये तो हमें क्लियर हो ही रहा है दैट फॉर वन ऑर्गेनिज्म, लेट्स से फॉर हॉक इफ़ यू आर टेलिंग, तो यू आर गेटिंग मल्टीपल ऑप्शंस, ठीक है, वो कैसे भी उसको खाना मिल ही जा रहा है, इधर से मिले, इधर से मिले, इधर से मिले, इधर से मिले, इधर से मिले. सो मल्टीपल टाइप्स ऑफ फूड इज लेट्स से बीइंग got by this one organism. So because it gives more than one alternative to the food for the food, of course it increases the survival chances, because otherwise if the organism would have just relied on, let's say, one type of food, what could have been the problem there? सिर्फ एक तरह का फूड हो रहा होता तो what could have been the problem? The problem would have been that if that food was not available, the organism would have faced some problem. But here, if there are alternatives for food available, there is increase in the survival chances. That is pretty obvious. Now let's see some examples. So let's say we have an example of a grass serving food for rabbit also, grasshopper also, goat also, or cow also. So that can happen if we have grass. So different organisms can eat the grass, so it can act as a source of food for different organisms. Then let's say if we talk about a herbivore, which will feed on the grass, so or let's say any plant, so it might be a food source, or it might become a food source for many of the carnivore species. That herbivore can be eaten by any number of carnivore, right? So you get that option alternatives here. And also one more thing, कि एक और चीज़ जिसको ये ध्यान रखता है वो ये है that see, if the season is shifting, so with the shift in the seasons, the food availability and the preferences of the food organisms may also shift. ठीक है, हर सीजन में you will not have the same kind of food preferences, or even the same food availability will not be there. So in that case an alternative is already needed. If you just rely on one kind of food, let's say you like eating a particular fruit, any particular fruit which is available only in summer, and if you just rely completely on that fruit, how will you survive in winter and other seasons? ऐसा तो नहीं हो सकता ना. So this is just one example. So of course the availability and the preferences will keep on shifting seasonally, and in that case you will have an alternative to take care of your food needs, and this interconnected networks of the feeding relationships will help you in that, right? Okay, next we go for the concept of ecological pyramid. अब इसमें क्या होता है? Now it is talking about the पिरामिडल और डायग्रामेटिक रिप्रेजेंटेशन. डायग्राम में उसको बना के हम मदद कर लेते हैं of the trophic levels of different organisms. So different organisms are represented in a diagrammatic manner in different trophic levels. You know about the levels that we have already discussed, and it is based on their ecological position. What is meant by the ecological position? That whether the organism is a producer, or a first level consumer, or a second level consumer, or a final consumer. It can be anything. So you have a number of horizontal bars. Horizontal is like this, right? The horizontal bars, or a range you can say, which will depict specific trophic levels that are arranged sequentially from the primary producer level through the herbivore and carnivore onwards. So now this is very important, that all those levels that you talk about, so they depict specific trophic level. हर में एक अपना trophic level होता है, और वो एक sequence में arrange होता है. That is arranged in a sequence, right? So in the base you will have the primary producer. अब वहाँ पर आपके कौन होंगे? आपके herbivore होंगे. Then the other levels will be of different consumers. So on the base you will have the producer, then you will have consumer, and then in the top, सीखे जो टिप होगा उस पिरामिड का, ऐसे पिरामिड बनेगा, समथिंग लाइक दिस शेप. So in the base you will have the producer, then another consumer, and the tip will be your finally topmost carnivore. So this is how it will look. Now what about the length of each bar? All of these bars that we are talking, what about the length of each bar? So this actually represents the total number of individuals at each trophic level in an ecosystem. अब एक्चुअली इसमें भी क्या होता है, दिस डिपेंड्स, बिकॉज देयर आर डिफरेंट काइंड्स ऑफ पिरामिड्स, नंबर, एनर्जी, बायोमास, जो हम अभी देखेंगे. सो फॉर एग्जाम्पल, अब आप द फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन दैट यू शुड एक्चुअली हैव इन माइंड इज़ दैट वाई डू वी हैव इट एज अ पिरामिड शेप? ये ऐसा पिरामिड शेप ही क्यों है? सो देयर इज़ अ रीज़न. नाउ फॉर एग्जाम्पल इफ़ यू सी दिस, तो इसमें क्या है, देयर इज़ अ ग्रेजुअल डिक्रीज इन द नंबर, बायोमास एंड एनर्जी ऑफ ऑर्गेनिजम्स. ठीक है, दैट इज़ वाई वी हैव द 3 टाइप्स ऑफ pyramids. When we move from one step to the another step, for example, here it is the step of the producer, then you have a consumer, all of these levels are here. So you know that जो number या biomass या energy producers के पास होगी वो तो घट रही है ऊपर जाते जाते, that we have already seen earlier. ठीक है, कुछ चीज़ों में थोड़ा सा डिफरेंट होगा, अभी हम उसको देखेंगे, सम एक्सेप्शंस आर देयर, बट इन जनरल दिस इज़ व्हाट हैपन्स. सो देयरफॉर वी हैव अ पिरामिड शेप विच मीन्स द बेस इज़ द लार्जेस्ट एंड देन इट फर्दर डिक्रीजेज एंड इट टेपर्स डाउन इन द टॉप. ऊपर जाके ये बिल्कुल छोटा सा कम हो जाता है. ठीक है. सो देयर आर 3 कैटेगरीज ऑफ द इकोलॉजिकल पिरामिड्स, नंबर्स का, बायोमास का एंड एनर्जी या प्रोडक्टिविटी का. व्हेन वी टॉक अबाउट द पिरामिड ऑफ नंबर्स, तो यहाँ पर अगर हम बात करेंगे, सबसे पहले व्हाट वी नीड टू रिमेंबर दैट इट डज नॉट कम्प्लीटली डिफाइन द ट्रॉफिक स्ट्रक्चर. To any kind of trophic structure, it will not be a complete determinant. Why? Because just understand, pyramid of number means total numbers of individuals कितने हैं. ठीक है. Now you just imagine, is it possible that in an ecosystem you can count all the number of species exactly? ठीक है. If let's say there are numerous species, that cannot be possible. So all the organisms can never be counted. Therefore this will not completely define the trophic structure, but it is a good enough indicator to understand. ठीक है. अच्छा, what is this line? This I will explain after some time, once I explain you the image. So the pyramid of numbers represents the total number of individuals of different species which belong to each trophic level in an ecosystem. So if we have this and there are trophic levels, तो इसमें हर में कितने species जो हैं, total number वो available हैं, उसकी बात यहाँ से पता लगती है. ठीक है. Now the pyramid of numbers, what you have to remember is that it may be upright, which means ये ऐसे सीधा हो सकता है, और it may be inverted, ऐसा भी हो सकता है, depending on the size and the biomass. How it can happen? Let us see both the kinds of pyramid of numbers. Upright मतलब ऐसा सीधा हो गया and inverted would be this. So pyramid of numbers, here the number of individuals is decreased from the lower to the higher trophic level. ठीक है. Normal pyramid जो हम समझते हैं, that in the base you will have the the maximum number and it will decrease as you go ahead. So from the level lower to the higher level, the number of individuals is decreased. For example, a grassland eco system. So in this what is happening? Let's say अगर हम base की बात करते हैं, so the base is of your producer, which is let's say grasses here, and they are present in abundant amount. बहुत सारे grasses होते हैं, so that is having let's say the maximum number. Then these grasses are let's say being eaten by grasshopper. तो द ग्रास ओवर इज़ लेस दैन, आई मीन इन नंबर टर्म्स इट इज़ लेस दैन द ग्रासेस. जितने नंबर ऑफ ग्रास होपर होंगे वो ग्रासेस से तो कम ही होंगे ना, और कम ही ग्रास होपर है लेकिन वो खूब सारे ग्रासेस को खा लेते हैं. सो दे आर द प्राइमरी कंज्यूमर और द हर्बीवोर. देन यू विल हैव द प्राइमरी कार्निवोर और द कंज्यूमर rat. So rat will eat the grasshopper, so it will be again lesser in number as compared to the grasshopper. Then the snakes will be lesser in number to the rat and it will be a secondary carnivore and it will eat the rat. And then you at the top you will have the top carnivore, which is hawk, which will eat the snakes. So what we are seeing in this, that with each trophic level, जैसे जैसे ये increase हो रहा है, the number of individual is decreasing within each हायर ट्रॉफिक लेवल. हर हायर ट्रॉफिक लेवल के साथ द नंबर ऑफ इंडिविजुअल्स जो क्या हो रहा है, दैट इज़ डिक्रीजिंग, एंड दैट इज़ वाई वी हैव एन अपराइट वन, कि बेस पे हाईएस्ट होगा एंड देन इट विल कीप ऑन डिक्रीजिंग. नाउ अब आप यहाँ पर देखो द इन्वर्टेड वन. व्हाट इज़ हैपनिंग इन द केस ऑफ इन्वर्टेड वन? नंबर ऑफ इंडिविजुअल्स इज इंक्रीज्ड फ्रॉम द लोअर टू द हायर ट्रॉफिक लेवल. अब ये कैसे हो जाता है? लेट्स से फॉर एग्जांपल फॉरेस्ट की अगर हम बात करते हैं, ठीक है, फॉरेस्ट इकोसिस्टम. अब इन्वर्टेड विच मीन्स द बेस विल हैव लेसर नंबर ऑफ प्रोड्यूसर्स. सो हियर लेट्स से वी हैव द प्रोड्यूसर्स and in the forest ecosystem the producers will be what? The bigger trees, right? So there will be very few number of bigger trees in let's say a forest. Then we will have a more number of birds which will be herbivores in the another level, then more number of parasites, and then larger number of hyperparasites. So you are seeing that the less number of producer is here and therefore the producer is at the base, और यहाँ पर number of individuals is actually increasing from the lower to the higher level. So which was decreasing in the case of this upright, you can see इस अपराइट के केस में, ठीक है, यहाँ पर मैक्सिमम है और नंबर जो है वो धीरे धीरे ऊपर की तरफ कम ही हो रहा है, और यहाँ पर क्या हो रहा है, नीचे से ऊपर की तरफ नंबर जो है वो ज़्यादा हो रहा है. So this is how the pyramid of numbers look like. In the next video, we'll continue with the next 2 types of pyramid. One is your biomass, another is your energy. I hope the session was of use to you. Please do like, comment, share and subscribe, and do let me know about how you feel about the other subjects also, modern Indian history, Indian polity, geography, along with your environment and ecology. Thank you so much everyone. Take care till then. Bye bye.